Hi everyone, you're all very welcome to yet another Farm Safe story time with me, Alma Jordan from AgriKids. It's all part of a very special series of events that we're doing as part of Farm Safety Week. And a great big huge massive thank you to everybody in Flogas for bringing us all together today. So we're about to take our third visit to meet Tom and Sarah and all the gang on Riverside Farm. And today's theme is all about tractors and machinery. So along the way, we'll be picking up some key tips on how we can all remember how to be farm safe and stay farm safe, especially around tractors and machinery. So on a farm, we might see quite a few pieces of machinery. You might see this. You know what that is? That's known as a PTO, a power takeoff. And we use those on our tractors to help power some equipment that we use around our farms, such as an agitator for mixing slurry, a diet feeder to feed our animals, a hedge cutter, a mower, a rake for lots and lots of things. But today, especially, we're going to focus on the likes of quad bikes and ATVs, and also the number one, tractors. And can you guys tell me, what is your favorite tractor? There's a lot of them out there. I'd love to know how many tractors you guys can mention. Maybe send me an email, info@agrikids.ie, and tell me a little bit more about some of your favorite tractors. Now, without further ado, though, we have a very special visit to do. Today, we're going to take another trip back to Riverside Farm and find out what happened with Tom and the red tractor. So I hope everybody has their best listening ears, and let's begin. It was autumn on Riverside Farm. The leaves were turning brown and the days were getting shorter. The apples, pears, and blackberries were all ready to be picked and baked into delicious tarts. Autumn is a yummy time of year. Tom and Sarah were outside playing football with Meg, their sheepdog, or at least they were trying to play football, but Meg kept running away with the ball. Come back, Meg, come back, called the children as Meg charged around the corner with the ball in her mouth, Tom and Sarah running after her, giggling all the way. Meg was so excited to have the ball that she didn't see poor Mammy, who was carrying an enormous basket of washing. Crash, bang, thud. The basket flew up into the air and scattered all over the ground, with poor Mam sitting on the ground with a pair of Tom's tractor socks hanging off her head. Is there nothing else you two can be doing while I hang out the washing? Said Mum. The children couldn't stop laughing. Poor Mum looked so silly. After the children helped their mum tidy up, she handed them each a bucket. I've got a great idea that will keep you two entertained. There are loads and loads of blackberries on the bushes. Why don't you two go and find how many you can pick? Pick as many as you can, because later on, I want to make some blackberry tarts. Yes, said the children. They loved blackberry tarts. We'll pick as many as we can, Mum, they said, as they grabbed their scooters and their buckets and headed towards the bushes. Oh, but hang on, said Mom. Remember, only pick the black ones. Those red ones will give us the most awful stomach ache. The children grabbed their scooters and headed straight for the bushes. Maybe they'd also find their little friend, Mr. Brambles, along the way. Dum-de-dum-de diddly-doo, hummed Mr. Brambles. Autumn was a very busy time of the year for hedge sprites. They had loads of their magic that they had to do. They had to ripen all the apples, ripen all the pears, and turn all the leaves from green to brown. Using a special twig and his blackberry bird feather, Mr. Brambles tipped and tapped and zipped and zapped all the red berries on the bushes until they were black and very juicy. Said Mr. Brambles, there are so many berries this year. The birds will have loads to eat. And if I keep making all these blackberries, me and Mrs. Brambles will be able to make loads and loads of blackberry jam. Thought Mr. Brambles as his mouth watered and his belly grumbled at the thought of all the blackberry jam. Whoa, said Tom when he saw the bushes. There must be 1 million blackberries here. More like 2 million, said Sarah. Her tummy was rumbling too, but she was thinking about all the blackberry tarts they were going to be making. Mr. Brambles, are you there? Shouted out Sarah as she found a spot that had the most berries. I sure am, said Mr. Brambles, relieved the children were calling him not for help, but to have a friendly chat. Are you two here to pick some of my blackberries? Said Mr. Brambles. We sure are, said Tom, as he reached for one berry in particular. No, said Mr. Brambles, not that one, Tom. That's still far too red. And with that, Mr. Bramble jumped up and using that magic blackbird's feather, he tipped and tapped and zipped and zapped until the berry was black and round and very, very juicy. Said Tom as he gobbled it up. Thank you, Mr. Brambles. That was delicious. Suddenly, there was a funny noise, and the children looked over to see Daddy's red tractor coming over across the field. It seemed Daddy and Jack had some important work to do as well. Ooh, said Mr. Brambles, I must be off. The apples in the orchard need some of my magic. Have fun, you two. And with that, he disappeared. Daddy and Jack were indeed on their way to the far field in the red tractor. Their important work involved some fencing, and in the bucket of the tractor, they had everything they needed to fix and repair the different parts of fencing around the field. Some of the fence had become broken, and some of the gaps were big enough for a lamb or a sheep to wiggle through and get lost. They had posts and wires and nails and sledgehammers all in the bucket of the red tractor, all ready to do a very, very busy day's work. Daddy drove the red tractor up the hill and stopped at the very top. He turned off the engine and Jack hopped out. Don't forget the handbrake, said Jack. We don't want the red tractor to roll down the hill. I won't, said Dad. Click went the lever as Daddy pulled up the handbrake on the red tractor. Tom and Sarah waved over to Daddy and Jack, and they quickly set to work, filling their buckets and their bellies. We're going to be done in no time, said Daddy, as they quickly repaired the different fencing around the field. In fact, we'll be done so fast, we'll be home right in time for tea later on. Daddy drove the tractor to the other side of the field. Jack hopped out. Don't forget the handbrake, he said again. I won't, said Daddy. Click went the handbrake as Daddy pulled it up. From the far end of the field, as the children were filling their buckets, Tom couldn't help but wonder if Daddy and Jack were having a little bit more fun, and he wondered if he could get a closer look. Dad, he shouted out, can I sit in the red tractor and watch you as you fix the fence? Dad called over Tom. Okay, he said, you can come in, he said, but remember, don't touch anything. I won't, said Tom. I absolutely promise. Tom climbed up into the red tractor and sat in the main driver's seat. He looked at all the buttons and the flashing lights and couldn't help wonder what all those different buttons and knobs and everything did. He said, looking down at a big black lever. I wonder what this does. Tom's curiosity got the better of him. He pressed the button at the end of the lever, and it suddenly made a loud click noise as he pushed it down. Suddenly, a loud groan was heard from the red tractor as it began to slowly roll down the hill. The tractor, shouted Jack. Tom must have let off the handbrake. Help, cried Tom from the seat inside. Help me. What do I do? What do I do? By now, the red tractor was beginning to pick up speed, and soon it was going too fast for Daddy and Jack were running after it, their hands waving in the air. Faster and faster it went, heading straight for the bushes where Sarah was still busily picking all the blackberries. Sarah, shouted Daddy. Sarah looked up, her face covered in blackberry juice. She looked to see her father and Jack running after the red tractor, all the tools being scattered all over the field, and the tractor zooming down the hill and straight for her. Sarah, Sarah, shouted Daddy and Jack once again, their arms waving up high in the air. From inside the tractor, Tom clung onto the seat as the tractor rolled over bumps and through holes. He was very, very frightened and sure he was going to crash at any moment. Sarah knew what to do. In fact, she knew exactly what to do. There was only one person who could save them now with the kind of speed that they needed, the speed of magic. She closed her eyes, and remembering the rhyme Mr. Brambles first said to them, should you ever be in fear, call 3 times and I will hear. Sarah uttered those magic words, Mr. Brambles, Mr. Brambles, Mr. Brambles. Closer and closer the tractor was getting to her. But suddenly, as if by magic, a bolt of light went sharply past Sarah's nose and straight into the cab of red tractor, where Tom was still clinging onto the back seat. Sarah, cried Daddy, Sarah, get out of the way, get out of the way. By now, the tractor was just a few meters away from Sarah when suddenly, and as if by magic, it suddenly turned sharply away from Sarah, away from the bushes, and now heading towards the gate of the main yard. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. How did that happen? He said. Who was driving the red tractor? I don't know, said Dad. It must be Tom. He must have known how to use the steering wheel. By now, the tractor was hurtling straight towards the closed gate of the main yard. But suddenly, just as it was about to reach, the gate swung open, as if by magic. The tractor rolled into the farmyard and came to a gentle stop in front of the big shed. How did that gate open? Cried Jack. I don't know, said Dad. Maybe the wind blew it open. Daddy and Jack were now running towards the gate, and Dad was the first to reach Tom, who was still shaking from his ordeal. Tom, shouted Dad, out of breath. I told you not to touch anything. I didn't know you knew how to steer a tractor. Tom kept quiet. He didn't think Daddy would understand if he told him that he hadn't steered the tractor at all, that indeed it had been the magic of Mr. Brambles, whose bolt of light had suddenly appeared and taken control of the situation. Daddy lifted down Tom, telling him once again how lucky he was and that he was never to touch anything and to always do what he was told. Daddy set off to help Jack pick up all the tools that were now scattered all over the field. As soon as he was out of sight, Mr. Brambles came and perched himself on Tom's shoulder. Whew, he says, that was a pretty serious situation, Tom. You two could have been badly hurt. I know, said Tom. From now on, I'm only going to be playing with toy tractors, not real ones. I think that's the best idea you've had all day. The children picked up their buckets, which were now brimmed full of blackberries, and their scooters, and headed for home. Thank you, Mr. Brambles. Thanks again, called Sarah, her mouth still covered in blackberry juice. Later that day, Mr. Brambles got a funny sensation in his nose. His nose tingled and tickled as he inhaled the beautiful, glorious smell that was suddenly wafting through his little hedge house. Oh, he says, what is that delicious smell? He poked his head out through his little hedge house door and saw the most delicious, most golden, most juicy blackberry tart waiting for him. Beside it was a little card with a picture of Mr. Brambles, Meg, Tom, and Sarah on the front. And inside were the words, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brambles, for being our friend. Wow, said Mr. Brambles as he picked up his beautiful treat. I'm going to enjoy this in the autumn sun. Aren't I a lucky guy to have such wonderful friends in Tom and Sarah? Mr. Brambles took his tart and found the roof of the red tractor. From the top, he could look down across the whole yard and see what was going on. He watched as Jack was coming towards him. He knew he couldn't see him, but he knew that he could hear every word that Jack was going to say. Poor Jack was still feeling a little bit confused. He still couldn't work out how that tractor had suddenly changed direction, how the gate had suddenly blown open. And only the previous week, he was sure he had seen a flying bull. I don't know, he said, scratching his head. There's something funny going on around here. Is there something magical about Riverside Farm? Jack thought for a moment and then laughed out loud. Of course not. Sure, there's no such thing as magic. Sitting on the roof of the red tractor, happily munching his beautiful blackberry tart, Mr. Brambles couldn't help but do a big grin. Oh, Jack, he thought, it is magic, all right, he said. It's hedge sprite magic. So children, you see why we never ever get too close to tractors, real ones, because they're only for grown-ups and should only be driven and handled by grown-ups. But that doesn't mean you don't need to know a few safety tips when it comes to all things tractors. And guys, remember, show me how to make a number one finger. This is important stuff. This is the number one danger. When I was a little girl in the 1980s, the kind of tractor we had looked a little bit like that. It was big to me, but as I got bigger, well, our tractors got bigger too. And the tractor I grew up with grew about 5 times bigger to become the tractor that we have here today. The little tractor I had was about 50 horsepower. That was the tractor that we had. Tractor now is about 250 horsepower. It's huge. It's massive. And it has to, because it has so much work that it has to do. But because the tractors are so much bigger now, that means we've got to be all the more careful. In fact, the back wheel of a tractor is about 6 feet tall, bigger than me and bigger than you, no doubt. And that means that when I'm standing at the back wheel of a tractor, which is about here, I'm only halfway up the tractor. I haven't even got inside yet. So when we get inside the tractor there, inside the cab, I'm all the way up towards the roof, up towards the sky. And when I'm seated so high, all I can see is what's directly in front of me. I can't see who or what is on the ground directly below me. So it's very important that you know where to be when a tractor you see. So I want you to pretend that you're standing at the gate of a field and you can see a tractor in the distance doing its work. As you can see, I can see all the headlands in front of me, the horizon. But as you get closer, I can't see too good. So when you're standing far away, let the farmer know that you were there. We can see in the distance, but we can't see you when you're up close. The nearer you are to a tractor, the more danger you are in. So if you're at that gate, put your hands in the air and give big, huge waves. Make sure the farmer knows that you were there, but make sure you are well back. Because remember, the nearer you are, the more danger you are in. And that's because of the different blind spots that we have on our tractors. It's a blind area all around the wheels and all around the side and on the ground in front. And this green area, well, that's all that we can see. And you're not going to be up here. People are always down here. So that's why we stay far back, okay? And remember, if you know about any farmers, will you do me a favor? If they have a seatbelt on their tractor, we remind them to put it on. Do you all wear a seatbelt inside a car? Well, we should all be wearing our seatbelts inside of our tractors too. That's really important. And that's a job that you could do as an AgriKid. In fact, look at all the farmers putting on their seatbelts. We've Walter, Mark, and Derek, all knowing how to put on their seatbelts and stay nice and safe. Okay? Something else you can do. And if you have a toy tractor at home, you can do the tractor safety checklist. Okay, because when I know I've got a lot of work to do with my tractor, I need to make sure that the tractor is in top working order. I need to be sure that when I use my tractor, that I'm able to see, that I'm able to make it go, that I'm able to make it stop, and that I'm doing everything I can to make sure I don't trip, fall, or hurt myself when I am using it. So when I'm working on my tractor and the things that help me see, what do I need to look at? Well, you need to look at the lights. Are they working? Are they nice and clean and shiny? The ones at the front and the ones at the back. And also, what about this piece on top, the beacon? That's very important. That lets people know if there's a lot of hedges that they can see a tractor coming because they have that nice flashing beacon that's going off, alerting people to the fact that there's a big tractor maybe coming around the corner or up ahead. And also the windows and mirrors. I know farms are very mucky and muddy places, but by keeping our windows and mirrors nice and clean, we're giving ourselves every opportunity to be able to see. So make sure our lights, our beacon, and our windows and mirrors are all working. How do I make a tractor go? How do I make it move? There's something inside there, isn't there? The engine. So we need to make sure there's oil and different fuels and coolants and everything to keep it working. Don't you guys eat a good dinner and good breakfast to keep you guys moving? Well, that's what we have to do. We have to make sure we give our tractors a good breakfast, a good fuel to keep it going. And we also need to make sure that the tires and the wheels are in good repair also. Now, making the tractor stop is also important. And that happens when we make sure we check the brakes, make sure that they are working, okay? And also the tires. Even though the tires help us go, we need to make sure there's loads of grip so that when we want the tractor to stop, the tractor won't skid, okay? And that there's loads of grip on those tires, okay? So We know how to help us see, how to make it go, how to make it stop. Now to keep ourselves safe, well, inside the cab on the floor, we don't throw bottles all around, okay? Because they go rolling around the floor of the tractor. And sometimes they might roll underneath a pedal and jam it. We don't want that to happen. We make sure we take all of our rubbish, all of our drinks and all of our cans, all of our bottles, and we keep them in a little box beside our seat. We don't throw them on the ground. And that's the same in a car too, okay? And you know the steps we climb up and down of? Make sure they're nice and clean. They have fantastic grip, okay? And if they're full of muck and mud and squishy, gooey stuff, well, we could slip and hurt ourselves, okay? So keeping that free of mud is also really, really important, okay? Isn't the tractor safety checklist easy? We check our tires, check our engine, our windows, our mirrors, and all our lights, and make sure that we are safe when we're inside the tractor too, okay? Now, last thing we're going to talk about is quad bikes. I need everybody to be safer when they're with quad bikes, and I need you guys to help me to tell all the farmers how to be safer by learning their ATVs. When we're learning to read and write, we learn our ABCs. So when it comes to quad bike safety, we learn our ATVs, which stands for all-terrain vehicle safety, okay? So the A in my ATVs is age. How old do you have to be to use a quad? You have to be 16. And you have to have had training. Okay, you can't just open a book and read it. You have to learn. V, well, that's a big word. That stands for visual inspection. Every time we use our quad bike, we give it a little check over to make sure there is no damage, make sure the tires are okay, that it has enough fuel. A bit like our tractor checklist that we just did. And S, well, that stands for safety equipment, and that's us. That's down to everything that we need to wear to keep ourselves safe. And if you see Alan here from our farm, he's got his helmet on, he's got gloves on, he's got his boots on, making sure that he's everything on him to keep himself safe when he's out and about and using the quad bike, okay? I have a very good friend called Noel, and he's going to show us what he wears when he's using his quad bike at home. So what's the first thing Noel has on? What's that? He has his helmet on, hasn't he? He's minding his head. So here's my one, okay? Okay, look. It's light, but it's really, really solid. Now, what's Noel using to protect his eyes? He's got glasses on, hasn't he? Yeah, look at that. Okay. In case it's a sunny day, so we can see. What else is going on? Oh, long sleeves, long trouser legs to protect us from scratches and scrapes from brambles. Good grip on our boots and gloves, and especially in the winter time. Did you see Alan with his big thick gloves? Yeah, they keep his hands nice and warm. And I have a little bit of grip there too. Now, Noel also wanted me to tell everybody that when we're using quad bikes, only one person should ever be on a quad bike, and that's the person who is operating it, who is driving it, okay? It's not made for two people. No, there's a big long seat there, and I need the big long seat so I can slide forward and back so I can keep the bike balanced, okay? And if there's somebody on that bike with me, then I can't slide forward and back, which means the bike won't be as balanced and it might topple over, and we don't want that to happen, okay? So make sure only one person ever allowed on a quad bike, okay? Unfortunately, not everybody knows our ATVs, guys, okay? Look, no helmets, a passenger, and look, that's a very young passenger on that one. They have helmets, but they still have a passenger, okay? So it's very important that when we're using quad bikes, we know how to stay safe, okay? So, well done. We've just done our story time session on machinery and farm safety, and thank you so much for taking part in it. You are helping me make our farms much safer places. So without further ado, we're going to make our farm safe promise. Are you ready? Raise your right hand. You're going to become an AgriKid and repeat after me. I promise to never visit a farm alone. I promise to never approach an animal I don't know. I promise to always keep back from moving farm machinery. Thank you all so much for taking part. And a great big huge thank you to everybody at Flogas for helping make this possible. Hope you all have a wonderful summer. And remember, above all, guys, to be farm safe and to stay farm safe. Take care. Bye-bye.